Hey guys, it's Quinlin. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm really excited. Today I'm bringing you guys another reading challenge. So last time I tried to read The Infernal Devices in 72 hours, and today I'm going to push myself a little bit harder and try to read the Young Elite series by Marie Lu in 48 hours. So it is currently 2:45, so I think I'm going to start the clock at 3. It is also Thursday, so I'm going to try to end the challenge on Saturday at 3 p.m., which gives me exactly 48 hours to finish the series, which I'm really excited about. I'm not sure if I'm going to succeed or not, but I'm going to include spoilers, so if you haven't read the series or if you don't want to be spoiled, and if you don't want to be spoiled, then you probably shouldn't watch this video. But if you don't mind being spoiled, or if you have read the series, feel free to come along and listen to my thoughts on the entire series. The first book is The Young Elites, the second book is The Rose Society, and then the third book is The Midnight Star, which all pretty sick covers. I decided I wanted to read the Young Elite series just because I've owned this series for a really long time and it's just taken me forever to pick it up. I also, one day, I told myself that I would look at my bookshelf and the first unread series I saw, I would force myself to read, and it ended up being the Young Elite series. And I was a little bit bummed at first because I was really putting it off, and for some reason I had something against it. I think maybe I tried to read it a long time ago and I didn't really like it that much, but I think that I don't know. I think it'll be a fun experience because even if I don't like the series, it will be all over in 48 hours. And so then I'll know kind of how I feel. The books are a lot shorter than the Infernal Devices, so that's why I do think I could probably read them in 48 hours. But obviously I still have to sleep and eat, and I have a couple other like non-reading things that I want to do and get done, but I'm going to obviously focus on reading. I'll update you guys when I have something to share or anything. I'll set up my camera and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm just excited. So thank you guys for coming along on this journey with me. Hey guys, so we're counting down to 3 p.m. if you can see it here. And so as soon as 3 p.m. starts, I'm gonna get reading. Okay, it's 3 p.m., time to read. So I finished the first chapter. I'm like 20 pages in and I'm already not loving it. I don't like the narration style that much. I don't like how it kind of flips between being present tense and then kind of past tense, and I don't like how the one character is in first person, Adelina, and then Enzo is in third person. I think it's just kind of like a weird mixture. If we're doing multiple POVs, I prefer to have third person all the way through. I understand that she's trying to kind of, I think, pose Adelina as the main character, but I generally just prefer third person anyway. And then I just don't feel like I'm that attached to her as a character. I know it hasn't been very long, but I feel like we were supposed to get attached to her because her father's abusive, and to me, tragedy doesn't make me automatically love a person. It does make me feel sympathy for them, and I do feel bad for her obviously because she obviously has had a rough childhood and her father's pretty horrible, but it doesn't make me feel like, oh, I'm really attached to her and I want her to succeed. Like, I don't care that she's on the chopping block and that she might die. So those are just kind of my initial thoughts. Okay, so I'm on page 62 and I have some more thoughts. Basically, first of all, I really like the kind of Spanish influence. I do feel like usually medieval towns are pretty influenced by European kind of medieval towns, but I do like that this is very specifically like a Spanish influence because I don't think that there's necessarily like a lot of books that just have like a medieval Spanish influence. I think that's super interesting, especially with like the use of like the Inquisition and stuff like that. And then the other thing that I had to say was like, I think that it's interesting. Marie Lu just really likes writing the point of views of like enemies, like having the leader of the Inquisitor and then a member of the Young Elites, or a future member of the Young Elites as Adelina, as like the two opposing POVs, because like she kind of did the same thing in Legend, so it is almost like a copycat of Legend, just in a different time period with different stuff. Again, I'm not loving it yet. I feel like it's moving pretty quickly, which is nice, but I just am not really like sucked into the story that much. And then she had like not severe injuries and she stayed in bed for like a week. Like, they cuffed her and they tried to burn her, but she wasn't burned, so all she had was like bruises. And well, I guess she was like starved for weeks and she had like terrible food, so I guess that makes sense that she was kind of down. And then the only other thing that I really didn't like was that they named the days of the week like different. So like it's just confusing. Like I guess it's kind of weird because normally when you think of like the days of the week, you wouldn't think that people would have to change them in a different book. But I guess people don't usually mention days of the week in fantasy novels. Like they don't say, oh, on Tuesday we're gonna do this. But sometimes they do say that. And it never occurred to me that's something that you would change in a fantasy novel. For example, Prosperity Day, Ava Day, Mora Day, Amera Day, Sapien Day. So like it's just different, and that was just a little bit odd, I thought. Anyways, I'm gonna get back to reading and then I'll try to update you later. I'm trying not to update you guys too much, which is why I wrote a couple things down on my phone, but I did just have those thoughts that I wanted to share. Hey guys, so I'm on page 134. It is already 7 p.m., but I did take a nap, so that's why it took me so long to get partially through the book. I am kind of flying through it. It's kind of picking up for me a little bit. I still don't care about the characters way too much, but the plot is getting a little bit more interesting. It is pretty fast-paced, although in some aspects I feel like that's positive because it's allowing me to kind of fly through the book, but in some aspects I feel like it's kind of negative because it's not really letting me develop a relationship with the characters or really get to care about any of them. So Adelina basically just got asked to be a spy, and what confuses me is she's like kind of going along with it, while I feel like she could just tell the young elites that she's been recruited as a spy and they could purposely feed Taryn bad information. I understand she's probably scared for her sister, so she may have a motivation to give them genuine information, but they could also, they're the young elites, they could also try to rescue her. So I don't really understand why she's like going to actually just go along with this and get completely manipulated by Taryn. I do feel like he probably has some things that are like right, like there are probably secrets that the young elites haven't really revealed to her, and obviously the young elites are pretty violent because they do kill anybody who doesn't succeed to control their powers. So obviously there's that. So they're not perfect, obviously, but I don't understand why she's just going along with him when obviously Taryn initially wanted to kill her and now is like kind of trying to work with her. Obviously she doesn't really have any loyalties towards him. So those are just my thoughts. I'm getting closer to halfway through because it is about 355 pages. So I'll update you guys later when I have more. Hey guys, so I'm on page 173, so I'm about halfway through, which is exciting. And to be honest, I'm kind of flying through it. It's pretty fast paced and I genuinely think I can finish it by tonight. I did do some calculations and I can definitely read the series in 48 hours. I'm about to go downstairs and help make dinner, so I'm gonna take a break from reading obviously, but I'll try to get a little bit in here and there. And then basically I have to finish the series in 48 hours. I have to finish this book by 7 a.m., which is totally doable because it will really only take me like another hour and a half to finish it. But the question is, should I try to push for 24 hours? I don't know. It's a little bit ambitious, but I kind of feel like I can do it. If I push for 24 hours, I have to finish this by 11 and then I have to finish the second book by 7 a.m. But in that case, basically, I will just have to finish it tonight because obviously I'll be sleeping in the night. But that's my update for now, and then yeah. Hey guys, so it is 11:55 at night, which I know is not good because I was talking about reading this series in 24 hours and I don't think that's gonna happen. I've just been kind of having a rough day in general and I got distracted because we had dinner and then I managed to do some reading, so I am on page 205 and I did have some things to say, and then some clothes came in the mail and I tried them on and I was just kind of chilling and like watching YouTube and stuff like that. I know the lighting's really horrible, I'm really sorry about that. The two things that I just had to say was, first of all, I was gonna say her power is super useless. Like, the power of illusion is only good if you can truly make it like an illusion. Like, if can't hurt anybody or touch anybody, then what use can it be except in potentially like a disguise? I just thought her power was super useless, but then they were talking about her eventually being able to make people actually be able to like smell and touch and taste it, and so that would actually make her power pretty cool. So there's that. And then also just like another thing, I'm sure that she and what's his face, Enzo, I'm sure that she and Enzo are gonna end up together, and it just annoys me that Enzo has like a tragic backstory. Sorry, there's my cat in the background if you can hear her, but it just kind of annoys me because I feel like every love interest has like a tragic backstory or like a dead lover that like why did that have to happen? It didn't, honestly. Enzo could have just been like a normal dude, but of course there has to be that extra like angst. But yeah, that's all I had to say. Hey guys, I know I look kind of gross this morning, I apologize, but I am on page 306, so I just thought I would give a quick update. The only thing that I have to say is really that like the romance that's budding between Enzo and Adelina, I really honestly don't care about, and I do kind of wonder where the second book is gonna go. Right now I'm at the part where it's kind of like the day before they're about to duel, and so it's kind of like an end game for the Malfettos versus the Inquisitors, and I just don't see where this is going to go after this book, except I'm pretty sure that both Enzo and Taryn are going to stay alive, just because Taryn is like kind of a main character because he does get a point of view, and then I think if they killed Enzo, it would be kind of shutting off the ability for him to become king, and so I think that's obviously their end game. So I don't know like what's gonna happen, but I don't think either of them are gonna die, and I'm just eager to see what's gonna happen. I did end up falling asleep last night because it just got late and I was really tired, and I told myself, you know what, it's better for me to just read it in the morning when I'm more awake than to push myself at night. But yeah, that's all. Hey guys, so I finally finished Young Elites, and so I'm going to move on to Rose Society in a little bit, but I am just a little shook that they ended up killing off Enzo. I guess now that I've read the epilogue, I understand that they have a girl who can bring people back from the dead, so obviously they kind of have a way to fix it, but I don't understand like how that's going to work if the people she brings back from the dead don't end up being like the same as they were when they were alive eventually. So obviously he can't become king, but you know, I have a feeling that Adelina will come into play. It is interesting to see. I do think that in general, like, the beginning of this series wasn't very strong, like the first few chapters, but I do feel like it got better, and then the pacing is fast enough that you can really like keep up with it, and so it makes it more interesting. But I guess the only problem that I have is just that like I don't love the characters so much, and also Adelina talks a lot about kind of being like broken and driven by like fear and fury and stuff like that, and I don't really see it. Like I don't see her being like a terrible person. Like every once in a while she has terrible thoughts, but like everybody has terrible thoughts sometimes, and so I just don't understand exactly how like a horrible person or whatever, or like why everybody is so scared of her. I just feel like it's kind of like the author trying to like make us feel like she's this like kind of big bad person, but she's not really, although it is a little bit interesting. So in general, I feel like I'm gonna have to let this like marinate for a little bit, but at this point I would say I would maybe give it like 3 or 3.5 out of 5 stars, just because like I enjoyed it and it's fast paced enough that I did manage to read it pretty quickly, and it wasn't like it didn't like drag on, but I didn't love it, and I'm not that attached to the characters. In fact, like I keep getting confused because I mostly know the main characters, and I kept getting confused about like who Michael was, and then I remembered. But yeah, those are just my thoughts on the first book. I'm gonna move on to Rose Society now, so stay tuned. Hey, so I thought I would switch up the scenery a little bit just because I know the same like background of my bed is getting a little bit boring. But I am 100 pages into Rose Society. I left my book downstairs, but I did realize there's a couple other things that I just have to get done in terms of like prepping for gifts for my friend's birthday that's coming up. So I'm gonna do that and listen to my audiobook and just take a quick break from reading, and then I'll jump back into it. I have to admit, Adelina is not the most likable main character. In general, I'm having a hard time like connecting with her completely, and I do feel like this series keeps me a little bit at arm's length, but it does move pretty quickly, so it's not a hard series to read. It's just not one of my favorites, I would have to say. Hey guys, so I know I still look kind of ratty, so I'm sorry about that. And the lighting is kind of funky, but it's kind of cool. Anyways, so I am about halfway through Rose Society, so I am like 200 pages in. And so far, it is kind of interesting. I do think I have to say that like the Dagger Society revealing their plans just like in that random alleyway, like out in the open for anyone to like listen. It's obvious. Like, it's an obvious plot device just to like have Adelina figure out their plans. So I thought that was a little bit cheesy and shouldn't have probably happened if they were like being like serious spies. But I guess they could be called amateurs, but I wouldn't really think of them as amateurs. Anyways, and then generally I just find myself it's fast paced enough that like it's not super uninteresting, but I keep just getting distracted by other things and just like having the urge to do other things. Like, it's not really capturing my attention. Also, Adelina is an interesting protagonist because I do find myself kind of rooting for her, but in terms of her like being a ruler, like her motivations are very selfish, whereas the Dagger Society is kind of like they're working for the betterment of all Malfetos, and their deal makes a lot of sense to like work with the queen and potentially secure like better treatment for Malfetos. Even though I do think they are still going to try to put Enzo on the throne, their deal makes a lot of sense. Whereas like if Adelina was on the throne, would she treat Malfetos better? Probably, but would she also be kind of just like a ruthless ruler and maybe be power hungry? Like, yes, that might also be true. So I don't really think that she would make a good ruler, so it's kind of odd that I'm still end up kind of rooting for her. And even like I do find that her sister is kind of a little bit more likable than her, but that's kind of just me. Hey guys, so I am back and I am on page 355 of the Rose Society, and it is getting a little bit more intense. The only thing I really don't understand is like what Adelina's goal is. Like, I know she wants power, but I don't understand how she's going to achieve it. Like, everyone except for her has like actual troops on their side, and she has like 40 mercenaries or something, but that's nothing compared to like the entire navies that both nations have. So I don't understand how she expects to win, and I also don't understand why we're supposed to be cheering for her, because obviously she's not like the best person, and also I just don't understand why she would be better as a queen than anybody else. Like, I understand that like having a foreign ruler kind of and a puppet king might not be the best situation, but also why does that mean Adelina would be a better queen? Like, I just don't quite understand the whole purpose. In a lot of other books, we read about people reclaiming their birthrights, and that makes a lot more sense to me, especially if they would be a more benevolent ruler. But obviously, Adelina is kind of dark, and so I just don't really understand. And then also, her whole thing with Enzo, I don't ship them. I would prefer her with Maggiano, but even then, I don't really care that much about like either pairing. I'm just a little bit frustrated because I just kind of don't want her to win because I don't understand what she would add, but it's whatever. Hey, so I finally finished the Rose Society, and I guess I don't know if it took me until now, but I think what we're honestly just watching is a villain's arc. Like, I just think Adelina is the villain, and that's the point of view that we get to watch, which is kind of interesting to see her headspace, but I just don't love it. And I have to say, like, I don't connect with her because I don't feel like I have murderous urges and stuff like that. So I think it's an interesting choice from like a a book perspective, but I just don't think that it allowed me to connect with the character as much, and so I'm just not a huge fan. I feel like I enjoyed Rose Society maybe a little bit more than the Young Elites, but not very much. If I gave the Young Elites 3 stars, maybe this would be 3.5. I'm just like not loving it. I also do feel like at the moment I just finished the book, so I am a little bit kind of reeling from that. I also feel like, so Gemma died, and I feel like I was supposed to feel something, and I was sad because I do feel like Gemma was like a light within the series, but I wasn't that sad because I wasn't that attached to her. I feel like the thing is, I'm not that attached to any of the characters, so even if Adelina died, I don't think I would be that sad, and I think the world, or at least this world, would be the better for it. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm going to be able to start Midnight Star because it's like 1 a.m. and I'm getting pretty tired, but I set my alarm for 9 a.m. so I can wake up early and hopefully just like push through Midnight Star. But maybe I'll read like the first chapter tonight. So yes, those are my thoughts on the Rose Society, and so we are moving on. Hey guys, good morning. So I just finished about 100 pages of the Midnight Star, so I have 200 pages to go. I am getting a little bit nervous though because it's already 12:30, and while theoretically I should be able to finish it before 3, I just know that I get really distracted easily, and especially with this book, I just haven't been really vibing with it like just lately. Like, I'm a little bit tired of like her just being like corrupted. Like, we can tell she's like on a downward spiral, and I'm just kind of sick of it. I honestly like prefer to read about heroes. Like, I know it's more cliche and everything, but I like to read about heroes like reclaiming their birthright and like being benevolent leaders. I don't really like to see all this like cruelty. I feel like there's enough of that in the world that I don't want to really read about it. So I'm just not really vibing with this book completely, but I'm gonna stick with it and try to finish it. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, even though I haven't loved this series, like, if I finish it now, then it'll be over, and then I don't have to reread it. So there's that. Hey guys, so I finally finished Midnight Star. It is 2:41. Can you see that? And so I finished it on time. I am really pleased. I was getting a little bit nervous towards the end, and that's why I decided not to update you guys very much about my thoughts on Midnight Star. To be honest, I mean, I had thoughts, obviously, but I didn't have like a lot of specific thoughts. I got frustrated and confused by like Adelina's kind of like illusions, because a lot of the times I couldn't tell what was real and what was fake, and so that was kind of confusing part of the time. But in general, I feel like I liked the ending, and I did appreciate that the story was about a girl who doesn't know how to like fight. She just has like these powers, because I do tend to find that like in a lot of fantasy stories, the kind of main character is like really good at fighting or like something like that, and I kind of like that she died in the end. It did make me sad because I guess I wasn't super attached to her, but in some ways I was, and it did touch me. I think it touched me more from Violetta and Maggiano's perspective than it did just like Adelina dying, because I didn't love Adelina, but I cared about Maggiano and Violetta, and so I think that's kind of why I was upset. And then in general, I just found that like it was kind of a satisfying conclusion, and I don't know, I really like, this always happens to me because I always like read a book and I don't like it, and then at the end when my emotions are all in a mix because of the conclusion is very emotional, then I find myself like saying, oh, I love the story, but I didn't love the story. I didn't have a lot of fun with the first 2 books. Like, they were not bad. I wouldn't necessarily recommend them. I would say they're very average. Like, gave them like 3 stars or something like that, and that might even be generous because I just didn't love the story so much. But now that I'm past it, and now that I don't have to read it, I do wonder if my thoughts were kind of swayed because I was forced to read it in such like a short period of time. I do think that kind of forcing myself to read it took some of the fun away from it, just in terms of like, I did feel like I was slogging through it. Like there were other things that I wanted to be doing, but I was like, no, I have to read this series. I have to read it right now because I need to finish it by this time. And so I do think that may have had a slightly negative impact, but in general, I think it was good because otherwise I think it would have taken me a really long time to finish this series if I hadn't like forced myself to read it in like a specific amount of time. I'm still kind of collecting my thoughts, to be honest. I think, and all of the books are kind of blending together. The first book was interesting because we kind of learned about the society, and I thought that was interesting. The interesting thing too was that it wasn't very like politically intriguing. Like there weren't a lot of like, there were obviously politics because of like, we're involving like an entire kingdom and like the throne and who's gonna sit on the throne and stuff like that. But Adelina was just very ruthless, and even when she became queen, it wasn't so much about like the politics, it was just more about her journey and kind of her the corruption of her soul and like kind of the illusions that kind of threatened her and stuff like that. And I think I'm not being very eloquent when I'm talking about this. I think it's kind of hard for me to express exactly what I'm trying to say, but the ending did make me feel kind of good about the whole thing. So I don't know what to like rate the last book, because I almost want to rate it 4 stars, but I do think that's a little bit too generous. I think I might go with 3.5 and then have the first 2 books be 3 stars, just because I think the last book, the conclusion added something, whereas like the conclusions of the other 2 books didn't really touch me that much. I was surprised that they killed off Enzo in the first book and then they brought him back and killed him off again. I thought he was going to be a more important character than he ended up being. But so that was interesting. I guess Raphael ended up being kind of the main dagger that was really important, which I thought was kind of a twist, and I appreciated that. I didn't see everything coming in this book, so I liked that it kept me on my toes. But at the same time, I didn't really fall in love with the characters. I thought that, again, the perspective was a little bit odd, having Adelina in first person and then having other people in third person. I thought that was a little bit an interesting stylistic choice, but I didn't love it. I do feel like the other point of views were important to the story, so I do feel like in some ways it was necessary. So those are kind of my thoughts. Again, I didn't love the series, but I didn't hate it, so I'm kind of like on the fence about it. I'm glad that I finally got around to reading it, but so yeah, I think I'm gonna go now just because I don't want this vlog to be too long, and then also it is the weekend, it is Saturday, so I am supposed to be starting a new weekend vlog, which you will actually be seeing before this video gets uploaded, because I'll be uploading it on Friday. But thank you guys so much for sticking around. If you did, leave a comment down below about anything you'd like, and yeah, I'm pleased that I read this series, so thank you for coming along. Bye!